Alrighty guys, I know it's been a while since I've made a video, but all this commentary online around Luai being signed by the Eels and why it's a bad decision has got me off my backside to actually talk about it, because I think so many of the talking points made are really low-hanging fruit stuff that don't make a whole lot of sense. And I want to talk about it, why I think it's a good thing and sort of where the club is probably looking to head with the signing. It's been particularly frustrating to see so many agendas online. There's a lot of fan pages that have an agenda against the club that want to put this down, and they're not thinking through the bigger picture. I think first and foremost, the reason why I like this is because it's going to help us win football games next season, right? Yes, we've only got the guy for 1 year, but it's going to help us win football games. And if you look at this season, right, we've gone backwards a little bit, but it's primarily been because of all the injuries we've had, and the young guys that have come through are not quite ready. And it's not going to be good for their career growth long term, their career within the NRL, if they're constantly losing football games. They need stability. They need to learn what winning looks like. They need to learn what good culture looks like. And somebody like Luai is going to help with both of those things, right? He's won 4 premierships. He knows what he's doing. He's got good standards. And we've seen that on show through his time at the Panthers and the Tigers. And obviously we're getting through a messy exit right now at the Tigers. But the culture he's created, the players speak very highly of. So I think it's going to do wonders, for our football club. And it's going to help us win football games. First and foremost, that's why it makes sense. When you look at the dollar figures on hand, it's again a no-brainer. We've got him for like 600 grand for 1 season. There was nobody else to spend that money on. And that's where some of the commentary has also been. They've said, well, you should have signed someone else. You should have put your money in your juniors. And that doesn't really make sense because number one, there's no one else to sign at the moment, right? And you need to spend your money in your salary cap. You can't bank and use it for future seasons. And then to the second point of retaining your juniors, we've got Joe Ash signed. Yes, we might lose Volkman, but Volkman has shown this year that he's not going to be a first grader moving forward, as in a starting first grader. He can fill spots and maybe serve a bench role, but he's not going to be a starting half for a team that wins a premiership, at least in my humble opinion. And maybe things will change, but what we've seen in the last 18 months is certainly that is not the case. And then you've got Talentana Lorenzo in reserve grade, who's not quite ready yet. And Jason has talked about him being ready in a few years' time, 1-2 years' time, but not right now. So you've got this gap solution where you could bring Lorenzo in and almost damage his career by playing him in a system that's not going to be super successful. When you can bring someone like Luai in and set the standard at training, and who's arguably been the best 5'8" in the competition in the last 5, 6, 7 years, your kids are going to learn a lot from him. And you're going to give them 12 months more time to get ready. I think it's fantastic for those reasons and those reasons alone. And people have basically said it's ridiculous. I just don't see that. Winning football games is incredibly important for football culture. He's going to help set the standards off the field. And I know a lot of people don't like him because he's a bit of a grub on the field. He sort of plays that niggle game and tries to push back on players and get them under their skin and things like that. And as an opposition fan, you hate to see it. But he's the kind of player that you want on your football team. You want players that are going to fight for everything. They're going to make it, a rough time for the opposition. They're never going to give up. And whilst he's had issues in the past, especially during his Tigers era, I think it's going to help. And the money alone is an absolute no-brainer. We've got the young kid signed. We need to spend that money on someone next season. It makes sense to bring him in. I just don't get those mentalities around it being, a waste of money. I just think it's going to really help us. And I'm keen for your guys' thoughts, down below. There are so many pages just misunderstanding the whole situation and saying it's not going to win us a premiership. It's not going to do anything for us next season. But that's, completely irrelevant. We're a football club looking to build year on year. Jason Riles has talked about wanting to invest in juniors and create a system and pathway where our kids can come in, they can be ready, they can get games under their belt in reserve grade and then hit the ground running in first grade. Isaiah Iyongi is the perfect example of that. So was Jermaine Hopgood. Jermaine Hopgood has had a bit of an up and down in his last season or two at Parramatta, but the amount of games he played in reserve grade because he couldn't get past Isaiah and Penrith's starting side, and the same thing with Iyongi and Dylan Edwards meant they played 50, 60, 70 plus Reggie's games. That helped them get their bodies ready for week in, week out football and helped them learn their craft. If we can give the same to Lorenzo in reserve grade and let him build into his body and get comfortable, we can then have him playing first grade when he's actually ready, not having to learn while he's playing. And, Luai gives us that opportunity. And we've seen it with Iyongi and Hopgood. There's a reason why when they both came into first grade, they look settled. They look like first graders. And this gives us the opportunity to do the same thing again. And I'm just shocked why people are pushing back so hard. Yes, it's a cuck deal. Pizzette didn't work out, obviously because he was injured and he's a completely different player to Luai. Like, Pez has barely played any first grade at all. Luai's a 4-time premiership winner. We've got him for such cheap money that it's almost laughable that the Tigers are willing to let him play someone else while they're paying basically just as much as the club is now gone to. And I can understand where Benji and the Tigers have come from, because there's actually an Instagram reel when this first signing came, and I saw it on Instagram because it was from like 26 weeks ago or something, where Benji was talking about the fact that Luai's got the clauses in his contract and he's not going anywhere and he's here to stay and he's committed to the club. And then, 4 or 5 months later, you see him not only cash in on those clauses, but he's gone with 12 months left on his contract. So obviously he's had a tight connection with Benji and that's fallen through, which is why they're willing to cut him short. But we've got this guy to come in for 12 months. He's going to be a baller. He's going to take the piss. He's going to be there to set the culture and have fun and help us win football games. And I think for that reason and that reason alone, it makes a whole lot of sense. And, I've lost my train of thought. I'm rambling now. You guys can let me know your thoughts down below. But these comments online from these particular fan pages, from, these news accounts, things like Fox Sports, when they talked about it, you've had James Graham's podcast talk about the buy round or whatever it's called. They're not looking at the bigger picture. They're thinking, hey, you've just signed Luai when you could have retained a kid. Well, we're not going to lose any kids by retaining Luai because they're all locked down long term. We have money to spend next year. Okay, we could have signed somebody else, but who else are you going to sign? Who else is there to sign right here, right now? Like, sure, we might get down 3 or 4 months and maybe some more signings come to light because, clubs are trying to wheel and deal before next season starts. And maybe we're going to miss out on someone. But we have so much money to spend in our cap, through the loss of Dylan Brown and then a few others that have moved on. It's given us so much money in our cap space, but unfortunately where the market is right now, not everybody's off contract until next season. And, you're competing with Perth, you're competing with PNG, made it difficult, but really, we've not really missed out on anyone that you would desperately wanted to have signed. Like maybe Keon when he went from South to the St. George. But when you look at the fact that we signed Sua for much less than what he went to the Dragons for, I think that's a win for us. And we've basically signed Luai and Sua for what we could have signed Keon for. Like, I think that's a win for the club. Even though Luai's only here for 1 season, I think it's going to be fantastic. And coupled that with the fact that, him and Moses played phenomenal together at Origin level, I think it's going to be awesome. Like, I feel like Luai and Moses is the best combination that you could possibly have in rugby league, right? Cleary, obviously, because Luai and Cleary, but aside from that, I think these two guys are going to take the piss. I think they're going to play phenomenally well together, and I'm really looking forward to it. And it was part of the reason why I was kind of hoping we would have signed Luai before he went to PNG, because I think he's the perfect 6 for how Mitchell likes to play. And people, like with that in mind, being the perfect 6 to a 7, people will compare his time at the Tigers and see that he hasn't really performed all that well, but he's not a halfback, and the Tigers had him playing a halfback. Like, he can literally come into our system and just be a guy on the side that does his job, that sets the culture and then plays on the weekend. It doesn't have to be the main man because we have players like Mitchell there, right? It's a huge weight lifted off his shoulders, and I think we're going to see him perform incredibly well. And the people that are pushing back on the club are just not looking through, all the things that I flagged in this video. There's no one else aside. We're not going to lose any kids as a result. It's 1 year. It gives us more time to blood our kids. It gives us the opportunity to set a good culture, to show what good looks like, and then hopefully build on that into a club that plays its juniors, that relies on its juniors in the coming years. So you guys can share your thoughts down below. I just think it was an awesome thing. I think there are people that don't like him, which makes sense, but the commentary online is just so narrow-minded. They're like, save the money. You can't save the money in the salary cap. It's not how it works. You have to spend a certain amount every single year. And through the loss of Dylan, we were able to retain so many and extend so many that, we're really not going to miss out on anyone that we don't actually want to keep by signing Luai. I just get really frustrated when everyone's talking about it, not actually understanding how things work. So anyway, share your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.